All right. So I just started the call recording. So Sheila, I know you had asked about that. Just as a reminder for folks, but I think I'm pretty sure people get a little like, you know.
Yeah, as they join,
FYI.
they're told that it's being recorded.
Yeah. And hopefully we get a few more people on.
Who else is on? Is Alicia?
Oh, Alicia.
I'm here.
On.
Hello.
Hey, Alicia.
Cailin, am I saying your name right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So Cailin's on the line, and her colleague Jennifer is on the line. Jennifer Wells.
Hey, hello.
Ron
Hi.
and Marcy at Woodmark.
Great. Yeah, how many RSVP'd? I'm assume quite a few.
Yeah, there was definitely over a large handful. So I'm expecting. Hold on, let me see if I can pull up a better idea. All right, we had about 16 that accepted the invitation. So
yeah. Okay.
You know, when you guys got it through Outlook, did you did it come across at the right time for you? Like it's 1 o'clock Pacific time, but.
Yeah, 3 o'clock Central.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I just had questioning.
Oh.
That, but yeah.
Alicia, your colleague, I just forwarded the meeting request to her to Anya.
Yeah, she didn't get it?
No, I think, well, she said she didn't receive the original invitation, so I just forwarded the meeting request to her. So she
sorry about that.
On it.
Hi, welcome.
No,
those of you just joining us. This is Marcy at Woodmark Group, and we'll give another minute or so to allow some folks to join, and then we'll get started. Right. Welcome to those of you that have just joined us. This is Marcy at the Woodmark Group. We are getting some folks just kind of connecting to the audio and to the visual. We'll get started in just a moment. Sheila, you're going to start us off, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you just showed up with your photo there on our screen. That's groovy. I can see you. You did. Well, now you went away. What happened?
Yeah.
Oh.
You're on this little right-hand side thing.
Well, I'm still getting used to the controls because that's funny because I just minimized it and I didn't know it was going to minimize for all of you.
No, I think Marcy, it's that you're sharing your whole screen rather than just the deck. If that makes sense. So we're seeing what's behind. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. There's lots of
some thumbnail video.
That's okay. That's really interesting because I have it sharing just the deck, not the main screen. That is interesting.
Well, it was nice to see your face.
Okay, well, I'm going to minimize it.
Okay.
Now, does everyone
do you want to get started? Do you want us to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, hey, welcome everybody. We'll do introductions here in a minute. I'm Sheila Montgomery. I'm eventually going to drop that park, but right now I'm Sheila Montgomery in Kansas City, along with Alicia Eckert from Chicago. And
hello.
I want to welcome Alicia as my new co-chair of our foundation group, and I also want to give a huge amount of thanks to Marcy and Rona for making these groovy slides and getting us all linked up. And then a big shout out to Cailin, who's going to lead us through just some food for thought about how we do our work. So that's what we're going to do in the next hour. And Marcy, do you simply advance these? There she goes.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of look through this agenda. This is it. Marcy's clicking it off. Hopefully everybody can see. Please speak up if you're not seeing what's going to happen. There are some group norms now we're going to share at the very beginning, just kind of how we're going to make these conferences even better since we can't see each other. We're going to do introductions. Alicia is going to help with that piece, I think. This is Cailin's piece. She's going to do talk about project management and how they do things in Atlanta, and we are all hopefully going to chip in about how we do things, and that's that group conversation, just to talk about project management. What an enormous topic that is. And is that all of our agenda? And wrap up, yeah, that's it, including dates for our next calls. So without further ado, we can move into, I think, the group norms, yes. And so these are just basic tenets, right? Treat each other with respect, which fortunately we all do. What's said on the call stays on the call. Those of you who just joined us, we are being recorded. So for me, I just make sure I don't have my sailor voice, but also just, you know, keep things within our group. Be genuine about your challenges. I know our group does that. I've heard us all be super genuine about what frustrates us. Listen first to understand. Look at that one. Resist multitasking. Whoever's got their phone, put it down. Put it down, unless you're looking at this conference slide with your phone. And then we want to hear from you. So everyone will have an opportunity to share today, hopefully. We're going to celebrate one another's success because it's tough out there doing what we do. Oh, and yes, when we talk, we're going to try to remember to say, hey, this is Sheila from Kansas City. It just keeps us all knowing who's commenting. And yeah, mute yourself if something's going on in the hall or, which might interfere with our call, if you would, please. Is that all of our group norms?
All of them. We can move on to introductions.
Okay.
All right,
Alicia,
I think that's me then. Yeah, so this is Alicia from Lurie Children's in Chicago. And what we're going to ask everybody to do is just share with us who's on the call your name, the hospital that you work for, and then also just to make it a little more interesting, what book did you love as a child? So give us a title of what sticks in your mind, your nostalgia of your childhood book reading days. So again, I'm Alicia Eckert. I'm from Lurie Children's in Chicago, and I was, and to some extent still am, obsessed with Anne of Green Gables. So that was absolutely my favorite as a kid. I don't know if there's any Canadian hospital folks on the call, but if there was a children's hospital, Prince Edward Island, I'd probably move. So I think maybe the best thing to do, rather than just ask people to pipe up, is to maybe just go down the list. And if I ask you, if you wouldn't mind just jumping in, and then some of you, I may have to give a number or a nickname, or you may just have to jump on if I don't say your name, because some of these are not coming through for me. But Marcy and Rana, do you want to go next?
Sure. So this is Marcy at Woodmark. We're located in Seattle. So, gosh, a favorite book as a child, all I can think of right now is Goodnight Moon. And I did not prepare for this question.
That's a good
Still
one.
counts.
Being honest. All right, Rana, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Rana, also at Woodmark in Seattle, and I still have this book, and I enjoy reading it to the kiddos in my life. It's Bread and Jam for Francis.
I like that one. That was an excellent choice. I approve. Cailin and Jennifer in Atlanta, do you guys want to go next?
Sure. Well, Alicia, you stole mine. Because mine growing up was Anne of Green Gables as well. And my parents actually live on Prince Edward Island in the summers now. So there is no children's hospital. There is a veterinarian college there if anyone wants to raise money for that.
I don't know if I'm cut out for that, but okay.
But I guess after Anne, probably my favorite one was The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle.
And this is Jennifer Wells. I'm also from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and mine is hands down Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh, so sad.
I read it over and over. My mom had to take it away from me. She was like, oh, I can't take another upset. But yeah, I just loved that book.
All right, Sheila, I think you're next.
Yeah, Sheila from Kansas City, and I guess another sad one, but Charlotte's Web. I think that was my favorite book.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
All right, is anybody calling from a 301 area code?
That would be Sue Flaherty from Children's National in D.C.
Hi, Sue.
And hello. And my favorite book was Pokey Little Puppy because I identified with him.
I can still see the cover of that.
My son cried when his grandmother read that book to him. He loved that book. He really felt for that puppy.
Yep.
Perfect. Somebody's from 513. I should study up on my area codes. 513 area code?
Can you guys hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi.
Yes.
So this is Sarah Sullivan calling from Cincinnati Children's. How are you guys?
Good,
And
how are you?
I would good. I would say I actually, when you asked the question, the very first book that popped into my mind, even though I've been an avid reader for a long time, was also Where the Red Fern Grows, because it's the first one I remember crying at. But
Yeah.
if I'm gonna throw a different one out there, I'd say this was more in my young adult life, or I guess in college, but Harry Potter. I read it in English and Spanish, so the
Yes,
whole series.
ma'am.
So that's
Ooh,
another good one.
that's impressive. Points for double languages. All right, Kevin, you're next.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Braden from Chicago. I work with Alicia here and Anya on the call. And I guess my favorite book kind of growing up, I was a huge fan of Corduroy being read to me. But once I was literate myself, I became a huge fan of Encyclopedia Brown's series.
Yeah.
Those are my books.
Oh, nice. You learn things on these calls I did not know. All right, 248 area code?
Yes, that's me. This is Anya Majak from the Children as well. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So the book that immediately came to mind is Island of the Blue Dolphin, which I just found out came out in the 1960s, so I'm not sure why I read it in the 1980s, but one of my favorites.
Classics hold up. I think there's an 857 area code.
Hi, this is Emma Dunlap. I'm calling from Boston Children's, and my favorite book would be The Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
We're a fun group. I like these names. Somebody is on my screen as JAW022. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's me. It's Julia calling from Nationwide Children's here in Columbus. I would say for me, any Dr. Seuss. I've been reading a lot to my daughter recently, and she's cracking up at all of the rhyming and the pictures. So anything by Dr. Seuss. Dave.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Who we talked to? Susan Constantine. Oh, Susan from Atlanta. Hi, Susan.
Oh, Susan isn't in just yet.
Yes, no, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, Susan.
I wasn't sure I could actually be heard in the current arrangement, so evidently I can. So welcome to. I'm glad to be part of this conversation.
Perfect. And do you have a favorite book, Susan?
Yes, The Secret Garden.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, is that everybody? Did my list is moving as I think Ron and Marcy are assigning names. So did I miss anybody?
It looks like there's someone listed as CH197667. That ring a bell to anyone? All right. Looks like we're set.
Excellent. Then Cailin, I think we're over to you.
Okay, all right. I think I have my slides. So I feel a little awkward calling this a knowledge showcase because when I suggested this topic of project management for foundation relations, it was a bit more in the spirit of a cry for help as opposed to an urge to speak from some sort of deep expertise. So I'll hope you will bear with me. I'm excited to discuss kind of how we approach things here at Children's, but I'm really more interested in learning what kinds of processes you have in place at your institutions. I guess some background on why I raised this topic. This is my 3rd year at Children's, and I've had the chance this year, along with my teammates, to work on some larger proposals. They've been more complex asks that we've asked this year because we're in a campaign for our Marcus Autism Center. And I found that these grants have really required buy-in from multiple stakeholders at very high levels, and just logistically, they've required some very choreographed processes for gathering the information and then putting it together in a proposal. And also right now, I'm in the midst of organizing a rather complex site visit. This is from a mid-sized foundation that gives nationally, and the format's a bit different because instead of just coming to do a visit at a particular organization, they're really interested in coming to Atlanta and getting a very comprehensive view on what Atlanta is doing and how we're moving the needle on cancer research. So it's a multi-site visit across 3 days at 2 healthcare organizations and 1 university. And we also have an opening education session that morning that we're inviting other local foundations to. So this has required, I found, a lot of kind of macro and micro level work. So from streamlining the messaging that our institutional leaders are giving, to then on the opposite end of the spectrum, making sure there are golf carts on each campus available in case. So throughout this year, I've been looking at more resources for project management specifically tailored to our world, and I've found that there's a bit of a gap there. When I've gone on to Foundation Center or the Chronicle of Philanthropy or AFP, I found that most of the foundation relations resources are focused on the actual process of writing the grant and putting the proposal together. So how to develop, compelling, measurable outcomes, how to build a budget, how to incorporate storytelling. And I think that's all very important and necessary to what we do, but it's less related to that logistical project management piece. And the resources that I have found geared towards grants are a bit more geared towards federal grants. And those seem to have pretty clear preset compliance rules and deliverables, inherent to them. So I thought this could be a good opportunity to start building a set of project management best practices. I also have a deep love for Dilbert cartoons, so this seems like a good, I hope you'll bear with me, because I put some of those in this presentation as well. If you have any resources that you use or that you found have translated well from like a business background to foundation relations, I'd love to hear those during the discussion section. If you have any websites or podcasts, we love podcasts in Atlanta because we spend half of our lives in traffic. So, so that's really helpful. I found one called the Project Management Happy Hour that has been just kind of a nice introduction to some project management best practices. Okay, so I'll go ahead and jump in. Can we go to the next slide? So I thought I would structure our overview of project management into 3 broad sections. So pre-award, once the award is made, and then post-award or stewardship. And one of the tools that we use now pretty heavily at Children's for pre-award is our case for support. I'm very interested in hearing how you structure these at your hospitals, if you use one at all. At Children's, our whole case for support process has undergone a bit of a makeover. We've always had a case for support, but it used to be, especially in foundation relations and major gifts, that if we had a need in the hospital and a grant opportunity that seemed like a good fit, we could generally fundraise for that as long as it was approved by the service line leadership. And this has changed a bit in the past year, and that we really are now sticking very much more closely to what is specifically on the case for support, and even trying to prioritize within within each case, each line item, what is priority number 1, what's priority number 2, what's priority number 3. So the way that this works, how we build the case, is that generally near the end of the year, and we run on a calendar year at Children's, the foundation liaison works with their particular service line to develop a case for support. And in our world, it's just an Excel spreadsheet. It has a list of the line items, and for each item, there's a price point and a brief description and a contact person within the service line. We also list whether or not that item is in the budget for that year. So each development officer comes up with this with their service line, and then each service line's case is approved by Children's executive team. And the point person for this had previously been our Chief Operating Officer, Pat Frias, who is leaving us for Rady. I don't know if we have anyone at Rady's Children's on here, but if you want to give him back, we would love that. So I'm not quite sure which member of Children's leadership will approve it for next year, but suffice it to say, the case for support is now getting vetted at much higher levels at Children's. So once we get the case approved to go out and give to donors, we again double check that each individual item that this is still a need within the service line. We do have a column on the case for support spreadsheet that we're supposed to update if we have a pending ask for a particular item or if we have funded it. You know, I'll be totally honest, across the entire foundation, there is about 70 of us now in the foundation who are frontline fundraisers. We could be better about updating this and sort of communicating internally. So that's something that I think we could all work a little more on, but it's still a pretty new process we're adjusting to. We also have to determine in our world of foundation relations that the project we are pitching to a donor has long-term physician buy-in, but also not just physician buy-in, but buy-in from the service line's program manager, any coordinating staff who are critical to the delivering of the grant, the financial operations manager, whoever might be responsible for successfully executing the grant. Because in our world, as you all know, we have to ensure that this item is not just really needed just for this year's case. You know, we also have to ensure that it's needed for around 16 to 18 months when you consider the time it takes to hear back from a funder, and possibly longer, of course, if the terms are for a multi-year proposal. So we can go to the next slide. So I also presented a slide on developing deliverable calendars, specifically for large or complex proposals. And again, this is especially in cases where we need letters, say letters of support from busy leaders who might be, you know, in the Department of Public Health or somewhere outside of Children's, where we need updated PowerPoints or new graphics or visuals, items in addition to the written proposal and the budget. The calendar I've seen us use for these kinds of proposals is nothing fancy. It's just a table in a Word doc that is a calendar, but you know, we have for each date the person's name and then the item that they're responsible for delivering on each date. I know there are many different kinds of project management software out there. If you use one that you like, again, I'd love to hear about that in the discussion. So let's go to the next slide. I also wanted to include a section here on the complex site visit, because I suspect that this kind of visit that I'm planning now, the one with one funder but across multiple organizations and multiple days, I think that could become more common, especially as many of these large national foundations are wanting to, you know, to fund collaborative partnerships. So far for the site visit I'm working on right now, we've planned a series of internal meetings with the institutional leaders over the past few months. And basically, I've created 2 deliverable calendars. So one's for the service line leaders, and this is more geared towards refining the content that they're going to present during the site visit, so that high-level messaging of how we all collaborate together. And then I've compiled another one that is more focused on just the logistics of the visit. So that's like things like reserving rooms, booking lunches and dinners, golf carts, things like that, because you know, in these meetings that we have with these high-level leaders, I don't want to have to bog down their time with that kind of logistical in the weeds details. So for our next slide. Another thing that I found that's an important part of pre-award project management is defining a strategy for gap funding. I just know personally many of the foundations I have in my portfolio are smaller, so I tend to look for projects that are already mostly funded or perhaps fully funded but could use something extra to take that project above and beyond. And we generally collaborate closely with our major gift and corporate team members to come up with a funding strategy or for a particular need on the case. All right, next slide. So once the award comes in, we do a few things to make sure that things run smoothly. The first is that we request the service line leader to sign the grant agreement or to sign the acknowledgement letter. I think this is a great early stewardship opportunity because so often it is that physician's vision and expertise that the donor is supporting, but it also keeps the service line accountable for the funding that they are receiving. And then after we process the gift, we monitor it to see when it posts in Razor's Edge, and then we use that as a touch point to connect with the finance department and say, hey, the gift for Dr. So-and-so's project is in now, it's posted in Razor's Edge. And then we also provide kind of a heads up on when we're going to need to get information back from them. So we provide deadlines for the service line and for finance on when we will need updates for the grant progress. So next slide. And this ties into our processes for stewardship. I think we should say that even if the grant only requires a year-end report, our standard practice at Children's is always to provide a 6-month interim progress report. And a lot of that's just to make sure like the money is being implemented, things are still going smoothly. We have a couple steps we put in place also to ease the burden of info gathering on the service line. So if 2 of us on our team both have reports for the same project, we'll try to bundle our meetings with the doctor so they're not having to have the same conversation twice. We also try to be aware of any public presentations, conferences, webinars where they might be providing info related to the grant, and then attend those if the time permits. Or then we can just follow up and ask for the poster presentation or the PowerPoint that they gave, and then incorporate that into the report. So again, they're not having to kind of reinvent the wheel for us. We're also very careful about our timing. If we need information from the physician or from finance, we provide an internal deadline to them that is well in advance of the actual hard deadline when the report is due. We start our very friendly reminders about 2 months before the actual deadline. And then we also have the report signed by the service line. Again, I think it's very donor friendly because we really do want that doctor or researcher to be front and center in the donor's mind when they finish the report. But it also keeps the service line very closely linked to the gift that has helped make their work possible. Okay, so next slide is really just on questions. And I have some questions here that are, pretty specific, but I thought maybe we might just back up, and I'm just curious if any of these processes resonate with you. Do you do things similarly? How do you have, I guess I'm just curious if on a high level, does any of this sound familiar?
This is Alicia from Chicago. I think we attempt to do a lot of these same things. I don't know, Kevin's probably laughing at me right now. I don't know that we achieve them in terms of, scheduling things 2 months in advance. I would love to be that on top of things. And we've been working really hard to get all of our report deadlines and things into Razor's Edge and sort of figure out how we can spit out a report that's going to remind us of those dates so that nothing gets lost. We also are working from sort of the case for each department and leadership vetting the needs and that sort of thing. And we do have a process in place for sort of donor-specific requests as they come up. That's, I think, often where we get tripped up is you have a donor who has a particular interest or a particular physician they want to support, and they're not really on the priority list. And so that's where we kind of get a little off the rails. So our hospital has put in a collaborative fundraising committee to review. It's not a perfect system, but I think we're getting there.
Great.
Yeah, this is Sheila from KC. I would just say we we do some of these things. A lot of them, like I'm looking at your slide, developing MOUs. Thank goodness I work with private foundations. You know, we don't do the NIH stuff. And so we haven't gotten to that level yet. Well, let me take that back. We have, but the MOU process is handled in a different department, and it's a clinician-led process, so that I don't have to get involved, and I'm very grateful for that. It comes out of I think it comes out of our contracts area in our research business office. You know, they get involved in all sorts of things that aren't necessarily research related, but they have those skills. And so typically MOUs, subawards, which we do a lot of subawards, those things get handled magically outside of my computer. And then with so we're not service line specific. And so I am curious, Cailin, when you talked about your foundation liaisons, I assume that meant all your major gift officers, all your front-facing fundraisers, right, have a service line, but that doesn't necessarily hold true for you and Susan and the good folks doing the foundation work, does it?
Well, so our service line technically is our Child Protection Center. So that's kind of the one. Susan works with them to develop their case for support. And we have found that, foundations tend to be, since child protection sort of, crosses the line between medical and also social issues, that, foundations in Atlanta are interested in that area. But yes, technically we can write for any area of the hospital. Right. And in those cases, we often work closely with our major gift partner, who, we have a major gift officer who knows everything about cardiac. And so if we have a question about cardiac, we'll go to him first before we bug one of the doctors. But yeah, so that's generally how we do have one, but we also write globally across the hospital.
And this is Jennifer from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. We also tend to gravitate towards what interests us individually. Like I've done a lot of work with the family services, and I'm starting to take on neuro. I know Cailin has done a lot of behavioral health. Terry on our team does cardiac. So we tend to kind of gravitate towards certain areas within our team.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I'm interested in this. I know we've talked about collaboration in our Woodmark calls before, but I guess I'm just wondering if any of you have done collaborative or joint proposals with other organizations. Some of these questions here on how do you form unifying messages and how do you avoid, scope creep or mission drift? What did that process look like for you in doing a collaborative proposal? What worked and what would you maybe go back and do differently if you could? Has anyone done that?
So this is Sarah Sala from Cincinnati Children's, and I think we've done similar things to that, where we've worked with some separate 501c3s and coming in, putting together the proposals. But I mean, it kind of really starts in, for us, who is going to end up being the financial institute. Right. And then once we determine who's housing and managing the financials, then that's the organization who that's when our office takes the lead on the proposals, when it's coming directly to us. If it's not going to us, then I'm like, yay, good for you, go work with that other organization's team, because my team's time really needs to be focused on the funds that are coming in through our hospital. Although we have looked at grants where you can only have one, it's a limited competition. You can only have one opportunity from your organization. So we've actually even then used that as a way to strategize with, there's two interested divisions or groups on approaching it in different ways, and said, you know what, this particular area, psychiatry takes the precedent on getting this request out, but trauma services, if you can coordinate with that other institution internally, like you can potentially be on the sub-grant award list. You know what I mean? So we're not doing internal competition for the same funding pool, but we're able to kind of find a roundabout way to support both programs. But we really rely on whoever is taking the financial management side of it, then to start that then puts us in the same role that, okay, now we, Cincinnati Children's, are the lead in coordinating all of this, and we're the ones scheduling, getting everybody at the table, making sure everybody's agreeing to things along the way. We work with the development of the budget, and kind of act as the entire project coordinator as a whole, to bring it all together. But I think clarifying roles is a very honest conversation up front as you are, and sometimes the clarification starts to come out as you're also developing the content and understanding where the bulk of the funding is going to be used and spent. So, I mean, I think that those are always the parts that take a while to get started, and then you're kind of, rushing towards the end to get the rest of it finalized. But I mean, I don't know that I have a good process for it yet. We're still tweaking it as we go.
Yeah, great.
And this is Sheila again from KC. I would just quickly offer, I'm not the lead writer on this grant, but we're seeking a super tiny grant from the Kansas Health Foundation, but it's for a mobile market in Wyandotte County, Kansas, where there's high levels of food insecurity. So what's great, what these clinicians did first before they asked for the funding, which makes everything so super simple, is they created a framework for this community council that's tackling this issue. And it's got all that common language in there, right, from all the partners who are sitting at the table and all the agencies that are participating in this effort. And yeah, Children's Mercy is the fiscal agent for the grant, but it just makes that narrative sound so much better when you've got that language that isn't just all coming from this big hospital, right? But you've got language from all these other players. So this is new to me, seeing this community council framework. It's based on some fancy framework that's like, at Penn State or something. I don't know, but it's nice. It's good for grant writing. I would say that.
And I guess that to piggyback off of what you just said, Sheila, that's anytime we've done a joint submission to, on a project that would support the involvement, engage the involvement of multiple different organizations. You are submitting it as a we and not a one single organization, but it's just that's how we've managed the point person and who's kind of taking the charge on the roles. But I mean, definitely we've always put in saying, here are the 3 organizations that are participating in this. This is why it's so incredibly important. And then even justifying like how financials are flowing and where, and, and that's always at the end, but really it's what are we trying to achieve together?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Rana from Woodmark. I want to point out to everybody and those of you who aren't online, Jennifer from Wisconsin has chatted that their social service entity often serves as the applicant for a collaborative application with smaller community-based organizations, health departments, etc. So the provided funding is coming back to this entity through the grant.
Wait, meaning, I'm sorry, this is Sheila and Casey, meaning again, her hospital is kind of the fiscal agent and then distributing those funds out.
That's what it looks like, but Jennifer, maybe you can confirm that by chat.
Yeah. I think we all know funders like that very much when we share the award.
Well, and I think too, what's kind of, I guess the question that's swimming underneath this question when I thought of it was, Jennifer and I have seen a lot of population health focused initiatives, right? That seem to be, these amazing collaborations between hospitals and their food banks, or hospitals and their affordable housing offices. And I know the Build Upstream Challenge seems to really want to fund those kinds of, that kind of work. I guess I was just wondering if anyone had kind of done the logistical work of that, because it seems to be, I understand why funders would want to see more of that kind of work. It seems like they get, their dollar stretches much further that way too.
Yeah.
Great. What about site visits? Does anyone have any generally good advice for site visits from foundations, and what's worked for you and maybe what hasn't?
Okay, I'll speak, but I have nothing. This is Sheila again from KC. So you guys have to be getting sick of listening to my voice. But I'm trying to think. I've never had to get a golf cart. Check. Awesome.
We've never done golf carts in Chicago either, just for the record.
Yay. Okay, so yeah, I did have a site visit, and it was actually kind of a nightmare. And it was just across the state line at the University of Kansas, so it shouldn't have been so difficult. And I unfortunately went against my gut instincts, which told me that these board members interested in programs both at KU and at Children's Mercy were going to kind of get run ragged coming from one agency to the other within a 2-hour window. And my gut was correct, because it ended up that the head of our Children's Research Institute was only going to be able to spend like 5 minutes with them. So it wasn't, I should have followed my instincts on, how much time it takes, which it sounds like you're doing now down there. You're having a multi-day site visit. And the moment I heard you say that, oh boy, my anxiety went up, and I just thought, man, I hope they've got a really good events team that is there to provide just a little bit of logistical support for you, because that's an event.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we're very lucky we do have that capacity, and we have an intern in our AFLAC Cancer and Blood Disorder Center who will, we're very lucky we have her to do things like manage the flow of traffic and guard the snack table and things like that. That are really important.
That's right.
Well, this is Alicia.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to add one more thing. This is Alicia from Chicago. I don't have anything profound to say about site visits either, but what continues to be driven home to me over the years, and the more we do them, is the best thing I can do in advance is to create a really specific briefing document for our physicians.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the physicians are getting pretty good at this philanthropy thing, but where we find, I think the biggest issue is people who are kind of new to it. I have a site visit tomorrow, in fact, with someone who's a social worker coming along with the physician, and she's never done one before, and she seems to be terrified of the concept. So just to be able to say, like, here's the agenda, here's the objective, here's the history on the donor. It also, we've been doing a lot of work with funding for fellowships, or I have in the last year or two. And I find also fellows very often when they do a site visit, or if they have a stewardship visit with a donor, it's perhaps the first time they've done it. And again, making sure they have that background information. And I struggle with what is too much obvious information and what is, I have not yet, I don't think I've gone over the line of insulting anyone with too much obvious information. They seem to be happy to have it. So we spend a lot of time on the front end trying to do that. But again, we've never had to do golf carts to multiple sites. We're pretty spoiled that everybody's kind of in one place. We have some labs that are sprinkled around, but that's campus, but that's about it. And we just don't have golf cart weather most of the year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need snowmobiles.
Something like that.
Well, I don't know about this. I know we sort of talked a little bit on clarifying roles and streamlining communication with the foundation. Maybe we could move to the next slide for back end questions. Yeah. Well, I guess here. I was sort of wondering, how do you generally coordinate with your finance department? I mean, we kind of just do it on a, case by case. We just, work with the FOM or the financial manager tied to the particular service line. But I was wondering, does anyone do that differently? How do you generally communicate with finance?
This is Sue from Children's National in DC. We actually work very closely with the Office of Grants and Contracts or sponsored programs. It might be at your institution.
Yeah.
And they sort of take ownership of all the post-award management. Okay. And we just step in when it comes time to report or to remind a funder of a due date on a pledge or something like that. It doesn't work seamlessly because they seem eternally overworked. But it does help.
Yeah, I was wondering about that generally. I don't know if we could maybe just do kind of a round table quickly. We do not work very closely with OSP. There's kind of I always think of the Game of Thrones wall. Not quite that bad. That wall in the north. but but that's, we handle mostly the private philanthropic funding, and they handle all the kind of federal and state funding, all the NIH grants, things like that. So we don't do that. Does anyone else work closely with their Office of Sponsored Projects?
This is Sarah from Cincinnati. We do not yet, but I am trying to get us to work more closely because we have had a lot of funds that are philanthropic funds, true philanthropic gifts that divisions are now pushing through sponsored programs just to help them manage the fund distribution internally, because when it's crossing over multiple different internal divisions on how to manage that. And I was just meeting with them earlier this week to try and get a better understanding of how they're even functioning on the back end. And I don't know that ours doesn't fully understand the value of the relationship in it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's I think my biggest hurdle, but I would definitely love hearing how other people are successfully working with them.
Mm-hmm. This is Sheila and Casey. We've got in Razor's Edge, when that gift gets entered, we've got a fabulous person named Ramona who, if it's a grant, she communicates with what we call RG accounting, and that's in our Office of Sponsored Projects. They get the account number, and then I provide like any signed contracts, award letters, anything that they need to just keep in their file as well. If it's a gift, then Ramona reaches out. We have one person from accounting who is our person, and that's fabulous. And so if it's a gift, Denise Willitson sets up that account, and the clinicians are always kind of looped in on those emails. It still has hiccups, of course, right? People don't spend their money, or if it's staff effort, that's pretty simple because they just start parsing that out every month, right, to someone's salary. But if it's, they need to go buy whatever, we can still find ourselves kind of in a bind if someone hasn't spent their money. And but yeah, it works. We're getting there, just like everybody else. We're trying, and I know we can do a much better job. But I think we are, looking back over the last 2 years, I think we've gotten a lot better.
So this is Jennifer from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and that terminology of gift and grant is also problematic here when we try and talk to OSP, especially as the philanthropic gifts from independent foundations ask more for deliverables and outcomes. It's just an interesting war we're having over the words gift and grant here at our organization.
Yeah, Susan, give them your term. Is she there?
Yes, we certainly are trying to work through that process. We have one person that calls certain gifts gifty grants. There is the undefined process in that I would like, but we try very hard to focus on the sort of the purpose of the grant, which was from a philanthropic standpoint and less from a government or corporate perspective. And I think that's kind of how we go about doing that.
And this is Sarah again. I would just say that I have started with our sponsored programs using the word instead of grant, because as soon as they hear the word grant, they just latch on. Well, that should come, if it's a true grant, it should come to us. And we've agreed that grants are, used in a lot of different ways. But I'm just using the word funder when I'm talking with them, so that they can't quite latch on and saying, "Hey, this is I'm shutting you out completely." So now I just continue to use the word funder with them until we receive the agreement letter and have a better understanding of what the true needs are.
Great, that's very helpful.
An award, that's another
award I stay away from.
Yeah, again, Sheila and Casey, for us, it's just gift. For us, it is which accountant gets notified. That's, for us, that's it, because you're right, Susan, it's all about treating that funder, they don't know if they don't care if it's a gift or a grant. They just want us to deliver on the project. But if it's a gift, it goes over this way for that person to manage fiscally. If it's a grant, it goes over this way for this other person to manage fiscally. So that's, I didn't even want to think about it for a while. I refused to even care until it dawned on me, oh, okay, it really does matter, because separate areas of our hospital are counting those dollars and parsing them out.
Well, and we had too also, you know, for some of the national foundations that with some of the foundations that we've worked with that have local chapters that are giving to their local children's hospitals, we had previously it's been going through sponsored programs, and eventually the founder of this had said, you know, I don't understand why we're not getting more recognition for all the money we're directing to you. And it came down to this, you know, they were like, we don't get tax receipts, we don't get anything. And it came down to the concept of they are still giving, you know, in their mind, they're donating philanthropically, but they're giving it to, so I'm working through all of our sponsored programs team to help them understand there are some funding expectations that they would like to see that they don't necessarily detail in their agreement letters. Because even if it says check presentation, that doesn't mean it just goes off to marketing and marketing does it. It's, you know, we can help in that side, and that there is a relational part to ensure that they want to continue to fund us again. So, I did put together, and this is still very much in a draft form because I've just returned from a long extended medical leave, but I have put together a value add. It's a draft form, but like, what's a value add for our sponsored programs office to at least start working with us openly about, you know, where can we help plug in to help them help themselves a little bit, because I don't know that right now we're getting much further around, you know, who's processing what. And truthfully, if they want to manage the funds and it's easier for them to manage the funds for the whole hospital, that's wonderful. I'm focused on, and my entire approach with them is we need to be focused on the relationship with these entities, not the execution of the funds. So how can we focus on the external relationship side, and what's the value add that we can bring in that direction?
That's a really compelling way of framing it. I think that we're doing two sides of the work, and you know, it'd be great if we could have them as sort of allies in that as well. But yeah, our focus is really on maintaining the relationship and strengthening it. Yeah. Can I back up and ask a little bit about case for support? And I didn't know if our process for putting it together, if any of you use it in that way, or is that a normal thing for other people to use case for supports, or?
So this is Kevin in Chicago. What we've sort of done to kind of definitely start the conversation is kind of identifying our priority areas. So what we have, and we'll never say this to the donors, but we call them sell sheets. And there's sort of these front and back sort of extended pamphlets that we share during like initial site visits, or send them off to you know, a prospect to kind of give them a little bit more insight into the program overall, or that department. And then from there, we sort of whittle down, you know, a specific area, that project that would line up with what they're really doing. So we kind of use those case for supports and sort of in that way.
Oh, great. Okay. That sounds very portable.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy. It's something you can slide into a folder that has, you know, some of your other typical information that you would share, you know. So it's kind of nice. It looks good.
Anyone else on case for support?
Sheila, Casey, just real quick. We have one beleaguered proposal writer who answers to all the major gift officers. She has help now. There's two of them, but she'll gin up a case for support if it's a big enough focus area. The same things you guys probably look at too, behavioral health being one of them, right? And so when we start to see some synergy with donors, and also that it's a priority of the hospital, she'll create a case for support.
Okay.
But it is kind of it's an ad hoc activity.
I'm sure in our case, one reason why there's been a little more pressure on this process for us is because we're about to head into a major campaign to build a new hospital. And so I think, I wonder if Children's admin is kind of testing us to see, like, can we strategically align the foundation's methods of going out and selling to donors with the system's priorities a little more closely, because I think we're going to probably make them tighten the belt a bit coming up in the next few years. So that, I don't, maybe we're a little unique in that, in using it in the way that we do, because of our future plans as well. Are there any other questions, any other thoughts that people would like, just generally on project management and foundation relations?
It's Sheila one last time. Back on the case for support, we don't call it a case, but we do have a capital list, right? I suspect you guys all do too. It's that approved, vetted, these are the things that we're going to buy next year. And we have, our major gift officers have had it drummed into their heads that, anytime someone expresses an interest in an area, if they like stuff, we go there first. And I try to do the same thing with grants. So, and then we do have some pretty strict guidelines. We do not hire new staff with grant funding. It has been, it's been shouted throughout the lands, no new FTEs with grant support. Everybody knows it now. We just always have been conservative that way because we've had some really lean times with our bottom line.
So no pilot positions or anything like that?
Nope. Now, there's ways to get around it. Yeah, so you can contract, right? You guys all know. Yeah. You can contract, but we're not going to keep them on full time. That's a definite start, stop, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, our restriction is that we have to have at least 3 years of funding if it's for a position.
Yeah.
That's ours as well. 3
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. That's a good rule, actually. You should think about that. I like that.
Anything else anyone would like to add? I know we have a few other items on the agenda, so I don't want to eat up too much time into that.
Cailin, this was awesome. Sheila, again, this was so helpful.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
You're a good presenter, too.
Well, this was incredibly helpful for us. Thank you, guys. I know it's not the most exciting topic, but thank you. This has been enormously helpful for us. Yeah.
In fact, Sheila, again, this would be, I think, a really good, when we all get together again, those of us who get to go to Woodmark, this whole template that you put together might be a nice, because you would just open up so many things that we're all dealing with. I mean, you've really got a lot of stuff in here, the whole project management piece. I think we should might want to think about having this as a topic.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I think, Rona, did you want to share the Woodmark announcement on the next slide?
Yeah, I just want to talk for a second about the new Woodmark Exchange, which is launching by the end of this month. So our goal is to make it incredibly easy for you to get into WE and find who or what you're looking for and make it quick and intuitive. We want to give you the knowledge you need when you need it, not before or after. So you can so when you get into the space, you'll get to see that every cohort has a space similar to the old one, but it's a place where you can quickly find out when the next cohort call is happening, and with one click of the button, save that to your calendar. You can get a list of all the members of that cohort. You can find the materials and tools that are referenced in these meetings, and you can start a discussion with your colleagues. And in fact, when a discussion is started, you actually don't have to go into the platform to respond to it. You can respond to that from your Outlook inbox directly. So if you're sitting at your desk and an email comes in with the latest cohort discussion, you can just reply right there like you would to any other email, and that'll be saved to WE. So you're going to be getting an email from us probably next week or early the week after, and you'll be hearing about it from your senior associates as well, and we hope that you'll jump on and join the conversation quickly. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can reach out to me. It's just ranaP@thewoodmarkgroup.org. So that's that.
Thank you.
Yay. And
Before
then, yeah, so,
This is
go ahead.
Susan Atlanta. And
Yeah.
before we sign off, I just will post this question on We, but I wanted to introduce it. We are engaged in a sort of an internal discussion about faith-based fundraising, more in terms of, are we doing enough for some of our faith-based patients and families? Would they likely give more if we were more attuned to the sensitivities of their particular religion? And just wondered if anyone else, I know at KC the chapel was redesigned when it was rebuilt to be more inclusive of different religions, but I wondered if anybody had some internal discussions about faith-based issues in the hospitals.
That is an interesting topic, Susan.
Sounds like
That could be a conference call topic.
Yeah, there's just been some, question in our foundation about that in terms of, would certain groups give more, and, as we go into campaign, we're sort of looking at all our segmentation of constituents. And we just wondered too, in terms of the different hospitals, do certain practices get incorporated? Are there opportunities for example, if a family eats kosher food, is there a way to bring kosher into the hospital? That sort of thing.
Yeah, this is Sheila. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. Some of that work might be happening, but it probably would be happening outside of my knowledge sphere. But we're non-denominational, which I assume a lot of your hospitals are too, right? So, and we have a chapel, and they recognize Ramadan, and they recognize Christmas, and they recognize Kwanzaa, and they recognize, right? So I don't know if there's some interfaith committee that we might have within our chaplaincy department, but I'm not aware of a big initiative for fundraising in that area. So that's interesting. But go ahead. Well, I know we're up on time too. It's 4. So these are our dates, you guys, for next call. So I hope you'll participate. We do have a fabulous list of topics still we haven't touched on yet. Marcy typed those up for us. And so, Marcy, could we maybe share those with everybody again, or perhaps they're already on We, and maybe take a little poll or something to see if folks have a particular interest among the topics? I think there's tons of them that we haven't even explored yet, but they're listed out.
Yeah, we can post them on We. You can post them on We. I'm not sure if you're on there yet.
I think I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
okay, I am. So I've got the list as of July. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'll do it. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cailin.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Alicia. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.